Congressman, welcome to the program. New title here for you since you and I last spoke.
That's exactly right, Jason.
Biggest difference from the legislature in Austin to Congress in D.C. What do you think it is after the first few months?
Well, look, the biggest difference is I got to get my head right that come June 1, I got to go back to work. I got to go to Washington, D.C. when all my former colleagues are going off for their summer vacations.
You won't be adjourning, yeah.
No, we work year round,
yeah.
So I won't have a year and a half to go back to the district. I got to return back to Washington, D.C. and go back to work.
Well, speaking of that, this week the House starts debating the spending bill here too. What should we expect? Because we've heard all kinds of things across the board that Republicans want to cut Medicaid and a number of other cuts. What's realistic?
Well, there's one main difference as well as how partisan Washington, D.C. is. And you've heard a lot of Democrats talk about how Republicans are going to cut Medicaid and Medicare and SNAP and Social Security and use these big scare words. When there hasn't been one talk about that from any Republican that I've been around. I sit on the committee that oversees it all. There hasn't been one talk about that because we haven't started to put the formula together yet about what savings we're going to put in the big budget bill that we hopefully have to vote on next month.
But where do those savings come from then? If these Trump tax cuts have to pass, you got to find savings somewhere, and there's not a lot of places to look.
So the budget chairman, Jody Arrington, did a great job. He and his committee spent hours upon hours, many nights, many days, putting together basically the outline of the way the final budget is to look. Now the committees are all assigned with putting the meat, if you will, into that plan. So we go to work starting next Tuesday, and we do the work to make that happen.
Do you expect, though, any substantial cuts at all to these, to the Pentagon, to Medicaid, to Social Security, any of these other programs that so many people rely on?
My personal belief is we're not going to cut Medicaid, we're not going to cut Medicare, we're not going to cut Social Security. Take that to the bank. But what we will do is can we make those programs more efficient? Are there people receiving funds on Medicaid who are able-bodied humans who don't need to be on Medicaid? Are there people who are 120 years old receiving Social Security checks, as Elon Musk said he is fine? So we have to make government and those agencies up there run more efficiently and effectively. And look, what Elon Musk is doing is the first true audit in American history. Finding billions, he thinks it's going to be trillions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. Every American balances their checkbook every single month. We need to do the same thing at the federal government.
And to make sure I'm clear, where do you think there might be savings to be found when you guys start looking at a spending bill?
Well, truly, I believe in the efficiency of government. How many employees are in the agencies? Every single cabinet secretary I've spoken to so far is saying we have grown way too much, way too big. We have way too many employees working in these departments that it doesn't really help the American people. Yeah. Department of Education is a perfect example. There's not one kid in my district who the Department of Education educates. We need to return that money back to the states and let the states decide how to educate their kids. Let the local ISDs decide how to best educate their kids, not big departments and agencies in Washington, D.C.
And that's going to be phased out. Department of Education sounds like USAID kind of pushed into.
USAID did it to themselves. There are many congressmen and senators that sent letters to them and saying, we would like an explanation of how you spend your money. And they responded, no, we don't have to respond to you. So that's what started all that. And then, of course, that piqued Elon, and he went in there and looked. He went straight in there and saw the waste, fraud, and abuse, and he said, no, this is ridiculous how we're spending money here.
You're a big supporter of Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. North Texas and Texas in general is one of the largest federal employers outside of D.C. How many jobs were eliminated in North Texas?
I don't have that number, to be honest with you. I just really don't.
Are there some to be cut here, do you think?
I think there's some to be cut everywhere. Look, in the businesses that I run, is every single person there for the right reason? That's a question we have to ask about the federal government. If every single person is there for the right reason, I certainly don't want to cut them. But I guarantee you there's way more on the other side that unfortunately are there to collect a paycheck but do nothing to help the American people.
Let me ask you about one of your early priorities. It was a resolution to change regulations on refrigerators and freezers. Explain this one to me.
Okay, this one's easy. So I passed more deregulation bills in the Texas State House in the last decade than anybody. So when I went to Washington, D.C., I spoke to my committee leadership and the chairman, and I said, look, I'm all about deregulation. Is there something coming through the pipe? And they said, oh yeah, we had a bill last session. So this cuts the regulations that the Biden administration put in to basically tell commercial refrigerator builders and operators what they can do and can't do. We don't need government involved in those type of decisions.
Was it energy efficiency? Is that what this is?
It was an attempt at energy efficiency, but what happened was they had to raise the prices of their commercial refrigerators, which in turns mean every single business they had to raise the price to, which means every single person who came into that business, their prices were raised. So it's a typical ridiculous regulation government put in under the Biden administration that we were able to pass in the House to get rid of.
Was that ever enacted at all?
It's over in the Senate.
Okay, gotcha. President Trump's trade war, let me ask you about that. It's alienated allies, it's raised prices. Even Elon Musk, though, said President Trump should lower these tariffs and move on from that. Were tariffs a mistake?
No, they're not a mistake. Look, I'm a free trader. Always have been. I'm a disciple of Phil Gramm. You know, free trade is good. And he actually wrote about it in the Wall Street Journal the other day. He had an op-ed last week about it. So as a disciple of him and a follower of him, I absolutely believe in free trade. But we also need fair trade. And what I didn't know and what President Trump kind of shed light on is we don't have fair trade in America. And when we're importing cars from Europe, let's say, and there's no tariffs on them, and yet we're selling cars to Europe built in America, and there are tariffs on them, that's not fair trade. And so we want to equalize things. And also, you know, you're talking about the guy who wrote the book, Art of the Deal. And so I think he can negotiate with the other countries to make trade fairer so that America's on equal game when it comes to that.
I wonder why we haven't seen any deals yet, though.
Because
with any of these countries,
everything's in negotiation. Because look, you had Bibi Netanyahu here, you had the Prime Minister of Japan here. You know, they're coming, they're talking, they're negotiating, and you know, deals aren't made instantaneously sometimes.
He said day one, though. Let me ask you about the markets being roiled by all this too. I mean, what we've seen in D.C. is kind of President Trump's trade war has kind of blown a hole in. Not kind of, it has blown a hole in a lot of folks' retirement accounts. How long can Texans sustain this, and what are your constituents telling you about it?
Well, look, the market is volatile no matter who is president, no matter what happens.
Yeah, but not like this. I mean, there's new
sure like this.
No,
the markets go up and down all the time.
Not anywhere near like this. Come
the
on.
Markets go up and down all the time. All the time.
But what are your constituents telling you about this? Have you heard from them about what's
going on?
Well,
sure. We've been here for 2 weeks, and I've been all around the district these last 2 weeks. And look, for the most part, I mean, go look at the polling. I mean, Donald Trump has the highest approval rating, even more so than his first 4 years that he served as president.
But it's taken a hit
by the
because
way,
of the markets.
The congressional Democrats have the lowest approval rating. They're lost. They have no message. They have no leadership. So, you know, I'm going to side on the fact that we are cutting government waste and we're making government more efficient, and we're going to extend the Trump tax cuts in the next month or two as well.
You think the Senate will pass that?
I think the Senate will have to pass that. I mean, extending tax cuts so that American families don't get taxed higher.
Right.
Because that's what's going to happen if those tax cuts aren't extended.
Yeah.
Not the wealthy, but all Americans will be taxed higher. If those
small businesses will feel it.
Everybody is going to feel it if those tax cuts aren't extended.
Well, let me ask you about a bill that you co-sponsored called the Unmasking Hamas Act. It would increase penalties for people who wear masks or disguise their faces and they damage while damaging federal property. Obviously, this is aimed at the supporters of Gaza right now. We've seen, but this would also apply to like the far-right folks who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, wouldn't it?
Well, look, we have a problem on our nation's campuses right now, and a lot of foreign kids who are here supposedly on visas to get good education. Yeah. They're not here in the big sense of the word is to, you know, storm and protest on our campuses, hiding their faces, and create this sort of chaos on these campuses. So that's the purpose of the bill is to really make sure that we know who these people are. And if you're in our country and you're pro-Gaza and pro-Hamas, you know, that's not going to be allowed on our college campuses.
How much would it increase penalties by? Do you know offhand?
I just don't know offhand.
I don't remember. I should have looked at that as well, too. Let me ask you this last thing here. A number of open seats are open. A number of seats are open in the 2026 primary. There's U.S. Senate. There's State Attorney General, Comptroller. Are you going to endorse anybody in these seats?
Sure, I'll endorse in the race. Sure, I just haven't. I'm waiting to see
who all gets in.
It's still early. There's still, you know, like you said, I don't think everyone who's going to get in the U.S. Senate race is in. I don't think everyone who's in the Comptroller's race is in, or Attorney General. Yeah. You know, those seats don't come open very much, and of course, the U.S. Senate seat is not open. Let's be clear about that. So, no, I think that we're going to see a lot more people get in, and a lot of people have been waiting for those openings as well. So, and you're going to see senators run for higher office, and House members run for a higher office, and House members run for sit. So it's going to be for political nerds like us, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
How about you? You going anywhere?
I'm running for election. I'm running for election.
All right.
I've got a primary next March I'm focused on.
Congressman, good to see you.
Thank you, Jason. Good to see you too.